Then I'm going to be talking about why the state of California should accept a stricter version of the Animal Welfare Act. An article published by the Royal Society of Medicine states that most experiments conducted on animals these days don't even relate to human health. Don't even relate to human health anymore. You should listen to me because millions of animals are tortured through scientific experimentation each year for no real apparent reason. So as I just said earlier, the experiments conducted on these animals are completely irrelevant to human health. And the ones that are relevant to human health are horribly inaccurate. Studies have shown that 95% of all drugs tested successfully on animals fail when they reach human trial. And since the current Animal Welfare Act offers such minimal protection, during these experiments, scientists are technically allowed to set animals on fire, poison them, shock them, starve them, cause them brain damage, and even make them addicted to drugs. So today I'm going to be arguing about three main topics. First, I'm going to argue how the current Animal Welfare Act is failing millions of animals by allowing them to be tortured through scientific experimentation. Second, I will argue that by passing a stricter version of the Animal Welfare Act, we will reduce experimentation. And third, I will argue that by reducing or getting rid of animal experimentation altogether, it will not negatively affect human health in any way whatsoever. So now that I talked about why you should listen to me, let's move on to my first topic. So as of right now, the only law that somewhat protects animals against experimentation is the Animal Welfare Act. But like I said earlier, the current Animal Welfare Act offers very minimal protection and only covers certain species. For example, rats, mice, and birds are all excluded from the protection of the Animal Welfare Act, which is sad because those three animals make up to about 90 to 95% of all animals used in laboratories. The current Animal Welfare Act also fails to include many cold-blooded animals, such as fish, reptiles, and amphibians, as well as some farmland animals used for food and fiber consumption or used in agricultural research, such as cows and pigs. Also, according to PETA, over 100 million animals, including cats, dogs, rabbits, guinea pigs, hamsters, and monkeys, are killed in U.S. laboratories each year for biology lessons and medical training, as well as for drug, food, and cosmetic testing. And the animals that aren't killed during these experiments often develop these horrible neurotic behaviors that will often cause them to either spin around in circles, rock back and forth, bite themselves, or even tear out their own fur. So now that we talked about the main problem with the current Animal Welfare Act, let's move on to my second topic. So for some reason, scientists continue to experiment on animals even though research has shown that there are alternative methods that are even more accurate than animal experimentation. However, there are some scientists who have moved on to develop and use methods for studying diseases and testing products that will replace animals altogether and that are actually relevant to human health. One of these modern methods include using sophisticated tests that use real human cells and tissues. These are also known as vitro methods. There are also researchers from Harvard's Wyss Institute who have developed something very similar in what they call organ on a chip. And what it is, it's a clear little chip that's about this big that has real human cells installed into it. And these cells were grown in a state-of-the-art system, and they're designed to mimic and function exactly how our human bodies, organs, and organ systems do. Studies have shown that these new models can actually accurately predict the way that new drugs will react to the human body, as well as give us sophisticated estimates of the substance's likelihood of being hazardous based on its similarity to other substances, as well as our current knowledge of human biology. So now that we talked about some alternative methods to animal experimentation, let's move on to my third and final topic. So even the esteemed Dr. Elias Zerhouni, the former chief of the National Institute of Health, has admitted that experimenting on animals to benefit human health has been nothing but a major failure. He says we have moved away from studying human diseases in humans, and that the current problem with animal experimentation is that it just simply hasn't worked. And sadly, he's telling the truth. While experimenting on animals might have worked well in the past, all it's doing currently is costing innocent animals their lives. In fact, the act of wasting innocent animals' lives has gone on for so long that research societies in the UK have ordered their scientists to stop experimenting on animals if they weren't planning on producing any useful results. This is why we need to take a step back from experimenting on animals and for once look to our alternative methods, like using the human cell-based technology such as the vitro methods that were actually designed to reduce, refine, and even replace animals altogether. Even if scientists continue to ignore the research like they have done in the past, they would only be hindering their own research and thus negatively affecting our own human health. Because like I said earlier, over 95% of all their tests fail when they reach human trial. So today, I argued why the state of California should accept a stricter version of the Animal Welfare Act. First, I argued how the current Animal Welfare Act is failing millions of animals by allowing them to be tortured through experimentation. Second, I argued how by passing a stricter version of the Animal Welfare Act, we will reduce experimentation. And third, I argued how reducing or replacing animal experimentation altogether, it will not negatively affect human health in any way whatsoever. So now that you guys know more about animal experimentation and how many animals die and are injured in the process, I hope you guys do the right thing and pass a stricter version of the Animal Welfare Act. Thank you.